Right, this is Mr. V. I'm just going to go over some of the settings you need to have to get the boulders to work correctly, and also ways to avoid getting the player character stuck in the wall. So what I'm going to be looking at is my game from last school year, because I remember that we had a lot of problems with that. Sometimes the player would merge with the block or the big boulder, or the boulder gets stuck in the wall, or the player gets stuck on the wall. What are the things you can do to avoid some of those problems? So these are the things I want you to double check if you're having any of those problems. First thing we need to look at is the sprites. So if we look at the sprite for the block, we've got to be really careful on the collision mask. In fact, everything in this game should be set for their collision mask. Here I am in the block sprite. It should be set to full image rectangle. If you haven't done that for every sprite in the game, then you're going to have some problems. The only one that's not true on is actually the bomb sprite. There's a problem with that. So one of the ways to fix that is not making the sprite for the bomb full image. If you go look in the collision mask, you'll see it's a little bit, I guess it does say full image. So we must have fixed it a different way. Yeah, so I usually have a way to fix this, but we'll have to take a look to see how I fix it. There's a couple ways you can do that. So looking at this game, at least, we can see that all of the sprites, every single one of them, is set to full image rectangle. So make sure you double check all your sprites and make sure they're set to that. That'll solve a lot of problems, especially the Explorer getting stuck on the wall. Now, this game has been gone a little bit further than what we've gone in class, so I have lots of different Explorers and stuff. But even with the Explorer, you want to make sure that the collision mask is full image rectangle. So just check all your sprites, make sure they're set that way. Next thing is look at the objects. Where to begin? I think the problem most people are having is perhaps with the player itself. Let's take a look at the bomb code really quick. There's nothing in the bomb, but it's probably all in the Explorer. So I guess it's best to start with the Explorer. So we're going to start there. I'm just going to be reviewing the code here just to see if everything makes sense. First thing I do is when I create the Explorer, this is a little bit further in the game, but the Explorer, I have a directional Explorer. I have sprites that go in all directions, and we start out with the sprite that's facing the person who's playing the game. I call randomize to randomize the number generator so that we get different behavior each time we play the game. And then I shut off the animation speed for the player. This one's animated, and when it's animated, it looks like it's walking towards you or down the screen. We have a no key event, which we found isn't great, but it does the job. Basically, on all of these, what we said was we don't want to start a new move until we complete the last one. So we wait until the X and the Y coordinate of the Explorer is lined up with the grid. So the way we do that, we say if X mod 32 and Y mod 32 if both of those are true, then we can stop moving. But we're not going to stop moving until both of those get lined up, and then we'll shut off the animation speed. Same thing for left. All of them have that same structure here. If we're lined up, then yes, certainly we can go into the new direction and reset the direction of the animation. Same is true for all the others. Here's where it gets kind of dicey. You take a look at the collision event with the boulder. You look on the side of the Explorer. When the Explorer hits the boulder, we have some things to do, and it's quite messy. You can see it pretty large here. So these are the things you have to do, or you may have to do to behaving very strangely. May have to do to get this to work. Well, first of all, we're kind of going to look before we leap, so to say. if we're looking at what happens when the the sprite collides with the boulder. So what we want to do is we want to look ahead of the head of the boulder to see if there's a wall there. So we say 8 times h speed. Well, what's the speed of the Explorer? That's the first question. When we hit one of these keys, what do we set the Explorer to? We see the Explorer speed is 4, which in this game is pretty fast because the frame rate's going by pretty quick. So I have my Explorer speed set to 4. So if that's the case, 4 times 8, if we take that 8 that we're looking at, has to add up to, it's not add up, but those multiplied together need to be equal to 32. Okay, so if you have 4 as your movement speed for your Explorer, in order to make that 32, because we want 1 square at a time, we have to multiply it times 8. Now, if your Explorer speed's even faster, say your Explorer speed is 8, then you would change these numbers to 4, right? Right now, our Explorer speed is pretty fast. Even at 4, and when we're playing the game, it looks like it's moving pretty quick. So I bet you that the room speed is not set to 30. It's probably set to 60 or something like that. So the thing to remember is, take a look here in your movement and figure out what number you have there. And then you say to yourself, what do I need to multiply that with to get 32? And that's what you should put in here. When the Explorer is sliding with a boulder, we want to put in the number 8, because 8 times 4 is 32. And then we take our h speed and then we multiply it by 2. The reason why we do that is we're trying to look 2 squares ahead of us. We're pushing the boulder, so this is from the point of view of the Explorer. So you have the Explorer, that's 32 bits wide, and then you have the block, or the boulder, that's 32 bits wide, and then there's the wall. And so what you're trying to do is look ahead, not ahead of yourself, but ahead of the boulder, to see if there's a wall there. If there is a wall there, then what you want to do is we want to set the speed to 0 of the Explorer, right? Just setting it to 0. And these are all separate if statements, right? You check to see if there's a wall. If there is, then stop, because there's something in the way. The wall is in the way. Another thing you don't want the walls to kind of plow over is the bombs. So you do the same kind of setup. If your Explorer speed is 4, then put an 8 here. If your Explorer speed is 8, then put a 4 here. But it needs to sum up to 32. 32 is what you're looking for. So our Explorer speed is 4, multiply times 8, that's 32. That's what we want. We're looking 2 squares ahead of the Explorer to see if there's a bomb in the way. Remember, we're pushing the boulder, so we have to look 2 squares ahead of us. If there is, we stop. How about a detonator? Do you want the detonators to have a bomb sitting on them, or not a bomb, but a boulder sitting on them? And the answer is no. So, same thing, you look ahead and see if there's a detonator in the way. If there is, then you stop. Finally, is there a diamond in the way? All of these things we want to stop. And then, lastly, there's a monster in the way. And if there's a monster in the way, then we stop. Now, we have 3 different types of monsters, though. We're only checking for, well, we don't even know what this object monster is. We don't know what kind it is. What I did, in order to help with this, is I created a parent object called Object Monster. So we look at Object Monster, and you see Object Monster doesn't have, well, it has a collision event, I guess, with an Explorer. But it's really there to serve as a parent to all the other monsters in the game. So the spider, the ghost, and the skeleton are all children of this monster. Notice it doesn't have a sprite because we never put an object monster in the game. We only put its children in the game. I'm interested to see what happens here. But if we take a look at the collision event with Object Explorer, we see this is where we put all our code to handle, well, you destroyed the, well, which one you destroyed? Do you destroy, this is from the point of view of the monster. So whom do you destroy? You destroy yourself. Then you set lives to -1 relative. Remember that we're storing lives on the controller, so make sure you set this thing to the controller. See, it says it right there. Relative. And then if lives on the controller, right, make sure you say the controller, is less than or equal to -1, okay, that means you lost and you restart the game. Otherwise, the else, this is if this is true, then do this. If this isn't true, we want to do the else part. You just restart the room. Okay? But they lose a life in the process. Okay? So that'll work for all the monsters. But the only reason that works for all the monsters is because all the other monsters are children of object monsters. So let's just double check that. If we look at our skeleton, we see that skeleton, its parent is object monster. If you've done the spider, then you've got to make sure that the spider is a child or has object monster as a parent. And it does. And then finally the other kind of monster is the ghost. The ghost too has a parent of object monster. So all of those monsters now are children of object monster. We go back to our Explorer then. So here in the Explorer, we only have to check for collisions. Well, here with the boulder, we're just checking for monsters. We don't have to check for each of the monsters individually because all the children of object monsters are considered to be monsters themselves by GameMaker. So this will work for all the monsters. So you have these 4 things. If I zoom out a little bit, you'll see the structure of this. Oops, maybe. If you lose your screen, you can click on that. But it's just very linear. Okay, see that? Just a bunch of if statements, one after the other. If this is true, do that. If that's true, that, do that. If that's true, do that. If that's true, do that. So there's 5 of them in there. It's really kludgy code. There's probably a better way to do this, but that's all we could come up with for the boulder. Now, if we look on the boulder side, we're here, the Explorer hitting the boulder. Let's look at the boulder side. I think there's something there, yeah. So we have to do this as well. We have a collision with between the boulder and object Explorer. Typically, you only have collisions on one side of the collision, either on the one object or the other, but rarely do you have them on both. Usually it's to solve a problem, and this is one of those times. So here, what we're doing is if a boulder collides with a player, now I recognize only the Explorer can actually move around without help. We have to check for something. What are we checking for? Well, first of all, we get an idea of which direction the Explorer is moving, and we set our own direction, the boulder's direction, the block's direction, based on the direction of the Explorer. So we got to do that first in the collision event. And then what we have to do is we got to look ahead of our boulder. Now this time we're not doing ×2 because the boulder is now the thing in charge. Again, your boulder speed, it's just matching whatever the Explorer speed is. My Explorer speed is 4, so I'm multiplying it times 8. If your Explorer speed is 8, then you want to multiply this by 4. Same thing. Make sure they're relative. What we're doing is we're checking to see if there's a hole right in front of the boulder. Now, holes in boulders need to be able to collide because they cancel each other out and they both get destroyed. And so we first have to check to see if there's a hole there. If there is, then we let it move forward. Okay, so we jump to that point. And then otherwise, if there's not a boulder there, or a hole there, then what we do is we check to see if there's any other object at that place. And if there's not any object at that place, then we allow it to move. But it won't move unless there's a hole there or nothing. Okay? If there's anything else in the way, the boulder will not move. Okay? So that's what that says. So make sure that's in your collision event between the block or boulder and the Explorer. And then we do have a collision with hole as well. It seems kind of odd. This is when the boulder collides with the Explorer. But here's the hole. With the hole, we want them to both annihilate themselves. So first we get rid of self, which is the boulder, and then we also get rid of the other thing, which is the hole. And now blocks and holes should work correctly. All right. So going back to our Explorer then, let's look at the detonator collision. Quickly look at that. You see we changed the sprite to the second frame in the detonator because we pushed it down. And we want to do this in all the detonators. So we don't say self here. It's kind of odd. We say object detonator. We pick it from this list, and that will change the sprite for all of the detonators. Once you push one down, all of them get pushed down. Because your bombs can't unexplode. So once you press it down, all the bombs explode. So you might as well move the plungers all the way down on the detonators. And then we change instance of all of the bombs. See, we choose bombs from objects here. So that will, when you choose it from this list, it doesn't affect just one bomb. It affects all the bombs in the game. So that's what we want. So we set the sprite detonator to 1, so that's pushed down, and then we change all the bombs into explosions. Easy enough. All right. Next is object diamond. Here we just destroy instance of the diamond. If we are keeping score, and I think we are, aren't we? We're supposed to add to the score when you pick up a diamond. But that's not happening here. Maybe it's on the diamond side. Let me look at the diamond. No, there's no collision event there. Maybe I'm not keeping track of score. Let's see what happens when I play the game. Because I thought I had that covered, but maybe not. Do I even have the score visible? I don't know. Yeah, I don't see a score on the screen, so that's why. But typically, when you pick something up like that, you would add to your score. Get out. Boom. My bombs aren't working quite correctly yet either, so we'll fix that. A lot of people, when they play this game, they forget to switch this to test mode. You don't want to be running these in a browser. You lose a lot of information, debug information if you do that. It's easier to just do it in a standard Windows window. So we're going to do that. Say test. There's all the different platforms you can write your games towards. So if you're doing an indie game, you can do that. You have to pay money for these. Okay, so back to the Explorer then. What about the exit? So here I'm thinking we need to add to the score. So why don't we do that? Where is our score being stored? Well, it should be on the controller, right? So let's look at the controller and see if we ever initialize the score. Not looking good. We have draw events. We have these to move around rooms. It doesn't look like there's a cheat in there for lives. Here's game start. Maybe it'd be there. Yeah, there it is. We set lives to 3, but we don't set the score. So I wonder if we are keeping track of the score. For now, we'll just let that sit. I guess that's in another video, so we can worry about that later. But okay, so back to the Explorer. But if you are keeping score, you increase the score right there. The diamonds do give you an advantage, and that's maybe why we don't keep score, is because the only way out of the room is to collect all the diamonds. So you do get something out of it. It makes the door disappear. Here on the exit, this is when you check to see if you're not on the last room. If you're not, then you just go to the next room. But if you are in the last room, then you tell them they want it and you restart the game. So that's pretty straightforward. Here's the hole. Basically, when the player object collides with a hole, we just want to stop. Now, you got to be careful with these things because you got to make sure. If we look at the hole object, I think it has to be solid. Yes, look right there. Whole object is solid. So that's why, is it a child of anything? The answer is no. At least I don't think so. Let's look at object wall just to make sure. Object wall has the door, boulders, and bombs as being children of object wall, but not so much holes. So we have to code it in that special for the Explorer. You got to say, well, when it collides with a hole, you need to move back to your previous position. That only works if the hole is solid. Now the walls are solid. We know that. See, it's right there. And then what else needs to be solid? Maybe does the boulder need to be solid? The answer is yes. Ooh, yeah, that's an important one. If you don't do that, then weird things start to happen. How about bombs? Do those have to be solid? The answer yes. Okay, so make sure you double check all of those for the boulders, the bombs, all the things we just looked at. Holes are solid, I think, yeah. Yeah, they're solid. And walls, of course, are solid too. So double check that. That can really mess up a game really quickly. Again, I'm just looking at how we fixed it last time. Here's the collision with wall. Object Explorer, same thing. We just stop moving. One of the things Solid does, if you're not tremendously familiar with it, what happens if you have a collision event with a solid thing and you're inside that thing, what GameMaker does automatically for you is it moves you back to your previous position. Now, that being said, they've changed a little bit on how collisions work. So there's some older games that needed to work in the old way. Let's see what I have set here for this game. We're looking for collision compatibility mode. Say you have an older game that really needs the collision to work like they did in earlier versions of GameMaker, then you can turn this on. But we'll note that for this game, everything seems to be working and we don't have it turned on. So we're not relying on the old way of doing collisions, we're doing the new way. So make sure to leave that unchecked. Yours is checked. You might want to uncheck it. Is there anything else in the Explorer? Here's game start. What does the Explorer do? I just randomized it again. So that's a little bit redundant because I think the Explorer does that too at game start. Anyway, we're just trying to make sure that the random number generator is truly random, or almost random. All right, so that should take care of the Explorer getting stuck on the boulder getting pushed in the wall. Let me just show you what I mean. Here's the boulder, right? I'm going to push it into the wall just so you can see that I don't get stuck. A lot of people get stuck on the wall, and that's usually a sprite problem. So let me just push this out and go around. Now, can a boulder go over a detonator? No. So the detonator gets in the way. So let's see. The diamond gets in the way. So let me do that. That's good. The hole we do want it to affect. What about the door? Let's get this diamond out of the way first. What we're trying to make sure is that the Explorer at no time gets stuck because it gets out of alignment. And like I said, the Explorer. Last thing is just restart it. What about the interaction between the boulder and the monsters? So I'm going to put a boulder right there. This spider is going to come along and change directions. I move it up a little bit. Now he's coming in a circle. And what we're hoping for is that the Explorer or the spider will turn when it hits the block and treat it like it's a wall, and it did. So that seems to be working. Another thing you want to make sure of is if you push a oops. I want to make sure that the monsters don't go into the boulder. It looks like they don't. So that's good as well. That's kind of functioning right now. That looks pretty good. One thing that's not functioning, if you notice, is that when I blow things up, I only get the top two squares to get destroyed. Right? I'm not destroying all these, so let's figure out why that is. If we go to the collision event between the explorer and the detonator, we see that we set all the bombs to explosions. We set the sprite of the detonator down, and then we change all the bombs to explosions. Okay, which means then our explosions is the one that destroys everything. So let's double check that. At the end of the animation of the explosion, we have to do this. First of all, we destroy ourselves with it, which is the explosion. Remember, the bomb just got turned into an explosion. And at animation, then you don't want to keep animating, so you destroy the explosion, and then you have to delete all these things relative to the position of the bomb. So we're doing everything around the bomb. My guess here is that I've forgotten. Yeah, I haven't done all of them yet. I think I'm going to let you figure that out. But it's all based on the location of the explosion. You go wherever the explosion was. Here we destroyed the instance of the explosion, but it's really not destroyed yet. It gets marked for destruction later, so we can just still use that because we want to make this relative to where the bomb was. Now the explosion is. So we go left and up. Do the top left corner. We do the middle of the first row, and then we do the end of the first wall. And these positions are all relative to the location of the explosion. We do 0, 0. We want to be able to delete, if say there's a monster standing on a bomb, anything standing on the bomb itself should get destroyed as well. So we destroy that thing. But you're going to have to come up with the coordinate positions for all the other ones. So that's why all of mine don't disappear. I think I did that on purpose to let you sit down and think if you can understand what's going on here. Can you fill in the rest that are missing? I think you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more of these. But what relative position are you doing that in? So I'm not going to show you that in the video because I'd like you to figure that out for yourself. I'm feeling I'm missing something crucial. So let's just look at the other monsters. It just goes left and right, and if it hits the wall, it turns around. Here, if you see it grayed out like this, that means you're inheriting that from the parent. So we'll take a look at that again in a second. So that's coming from the parent, but these two events are specific to this object. In the create event, we just move back and forth. The whole is just solid. You got to make sure it's solid. The monster is not solid. And then if we check this, this is where we take care of getting rid of one life and end game stuff. There's a skeleton. Again, same kind of thing. Create event, we get it moving. This goes up and down. The spider is weird because of the algorithm it uses for determining which way to turn. Algorithm is kind of a difficult word. You use them in math class. Usually it's a formula that you use to get the right answer to something. It's called an algorithm. You can think of it kind of like a recipe. If you follow all the instructions in a recipe, maybe you'll have a cake when you're all done. So that's what we're saying here is what is the algorithm for the spider when it collides into something. Here, if it hits the wall, we have all this stuff. Lots of stuff. And then we have also, in the create event, we just get it moving in one of these 4 directions. Notice I set the speed to 2, so it's going a little bit slower than the player and the spider. I guess the spider, no, it's the player and I guess just the player. We're trying to make the spider go a tiny bit slower. So we said 2 instead of 4. But the key thing is here in the collision event with the wall. First thing we do is, well, if we add to the direction, we say relative means add to. Whatever direction we're going to add to. We're going to add 90 degrees to it. That's going to turn the player counterclockwise. Okay, so we're turning to the left. Just think of that as a left turn. If you add 90 degrees to any direction in GameMaker, that means it's going to turn 90 degrees. Regardless of what direction you're pointing. So it just adds 90 degrees to that. And then It checks to see if there's going to be a wall right ahead of it. The next step or the next frame is this spider going to hit a wall. If so, you can't go that direction. So you say, well, okay, I'm going to turn around then. So whatever direction I'm going now, I'm going to do a 180. Okay, so 180 degrees means to turn around. So I turn around and I check to see if there's a wall there. And if there is, then I say, okay, I can't go left. Now I can't turn around. Now I can't go right. I guess the only way I can go is back the way I came. And so what I do is I turn to the, here I turn to the left. Here I turn around, but here I turn to the right. And that should get me going back in the direction I originally came in. Just going the opposite direction of what you got in there. So we subtract 90 from that, and that turns us 1 or 90 degrees to the right. So that's the algorithm the spider uses. If it hits a wall, it's going to go through this algorithm to decide which direction to go. The wall itself has nothing set for it. So it looks like some of the problems we've had in the past have gone away in GameMaker. There used to be a lot of problems with collisions, but now I think this is pretty much handled. So double check all your sprites, double check all your code to make sure it kind of looks like this, and maybe you'll get it to work the way you want. There's videos on how to create that directional explorer on other videos, so I'm not going to go over that here. But I just want everybody to know when you get to the bombs and the blocks and the holes, and you're adding more stuff to the game, take a look at this video to make sure all your settings are set like this one, so that your explorer behaves the way it should when you're playing the game. All right, that's all I had. Thanks.